Welcome to Agency Acquisitions and Exits. I'm your host, Peter Lang. Today we have a story, the listing on acquire.com. This agency, Unfold, was doing just that. It was unfolding. And a creative director hire comes up with this idea that he had learned from a course he took, productized design. And he approaches the founders of this agency, who happen to be brother-in-laws, and says, I want to start this business venture with you, productized design services. And after 7 days, they were making money. The first year, good profits. I mean, we're talking about a company that looks dramatically different than the agency that they had accidentally started many years prior. And what did they want to do? Test the market's appetite for their reoccurring revenue services, their subscription-based services. And they list on acquire.com. So if you want to hear how they were able to convert the traditional digital agency model, design agency, into a productized service, package it, and then push it out to market on Acquire, then exit, this is the episode for you. Let's dive in. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me.
Absolutely. Stoked.
Yep.
All right, so this is a fun
Excited.
story, but it's going to take us a little bit walking through it. So if we can start with the pre-jam story, David, can you give us some backstory and get us started?
Yes, certainly. So my name is David. I am a co-founder of Unfold. So about in 2017, we started Unfold, which is a digital design agency. We've worked with over the years, many big names, small names, startups, all sorts of things. And we've eventually, that first year we kind of had we started it off of like a co-work place, like this whole agency. Eddie, my partner, he started it a little bit earlier. He was running it as like a freelancer. And then I lost my job. So I came to him in 2017 and I said, hey, if you want to start something together, maybe now's the time, if you're interested. And he was interested. So we joined in this co-working place. And we had a few people, like friends and people around us. And we're like, hey, we're kind of using their skills. And, it's like, okay, now we can offer this, we can offer that. And so we slowly, like really quickly got like 2 to 5 employees because we were getting just a lot of like inquiries, a lot of work coming in. And over the years, we slowly scaled the company and really expanding our services and just like your traditional agency, just offering, full-time agency services and really working really diligently on these details and with the clients, Slack channels, meetings, all sorts of fun stuff. And eventually around year, I think, Phil, when did you join? 2022? Or sorry, 2021? 2020.
Yeah.
There you go. So a few years in, so about 3 years after, Phil joined us, and he was really like kind of spearheading a lot of the product side of stuff, the UI UX, and he was just really good at it, and we loved him and his work and everything from the start. And eventually, about in 2022, we started getting a little decrease in like leads, and we had like this bottleneck of just not our lead funnel wasn't great. The industry, the markets were kind of down, and we just had a lot of employees. We got up to about 30 employees, and we just had a lot of overhead. So around 2023, we had to just completely restructure the company, and that's where Jam started come in right after that.
That's a very relatable story. Like how many accidental agency owners started contracting, had a buddy, had a friend, started building from there, and then you just naturally grew. Was it, you made it sound rather incremental and organic and kind of flow and easy. Did it feel that way while you were doing it?
Yes, absolutely. And that's something me and Eddie talked about a lot. We're like, hey, let's never borrow money. Let's never stress out over work. Let's hire a few people. And when we did hire, it was like we had a budget, like we had a safety net of like half a year to a year, like for paid expenses. So it was really organic. And that was something we actually used a lot. It's like, let's grow organically. And then, slowly we would take that next step, as we expanded. So
Phil, how'd you find these guys?
Yeah, I was working for a software consultancy. So it was like me and like 12 or 13 engineers out of a consultancy in Atlanta. And COVID hit 2020, obviously. And we had a few like really big clients. I was the only designer and a bunch of developers. And my boss at the time said, hey, we hit about June, end of June, beginning of July. And my boss said, hey, man, a lot of our clients are kind of like pumping brakes on tech spending, and we're going to need to like move you from salary employee to a contractor. And I was like, okay, whatever. So I was like, well, I'm going to try and find my next gig here. So I reached out to some different friends. One of my buddies who's in the space, he was like, hey, you should reach out to this guy. He just posted in, this Slack over here, and Unfold is hiring. So he mentioned it. You should go schedule a call with him, see what's up. And so sure enough, reached out to him, scheduled a call within about a week. And then a couple days later after that call, I ended up getting on a call with Eddie and David. And then within about a week from then, maybe a week or two from then, I was working at Unfold. So it was I kind of finished my tenure at this other software consultancy. And then about like, I think it was maybe either within 2 weeks, I was like started a spot at Unfold. And I think I was maybe higher like 17 or 18 or something like that at the time. So they were kind of rapidly growing at that point. The product department was only like me and one other guy named Evan, a friend of mine who I met kind of along the way. And so that department over the course of the 2.5 years that I was there grew to like 10 designers from you know 2.5 years before. So yeah, definitely everything moved super fast over that 2020, 2021, 2022 time period.
Yeah, that's fun. But you liked them enough to when they were trying to restructure the company to be better fit for their visions for the future, you all came up with a new idea. Whose idea was it?
So I would say that was Phil. Phil started pioneering that idea, which is productized design services, and I'll let him speak to that a bit. How he kind of got into it.
Yeah, I came across, and a lot of people who listen to your podcast, Peter, have probably heard of this guy Brett from Design Joy. Design Joy made a big, Brett has made a big name for himself as a kind of a solopreneur, $1 million agency by myself kind of situation. So he came out with a course called Productize Yourself that year, and I was like, I'm just gonna like buy this course. We had allowance money under Unfold. We had a couple $100s a month we could spend for education and software and things like, I'm going to like buy this course and, I'm going to see what I could, bring here. At this point, I was kind of in a creative director seat on the product side. And I was like, we need to figure out some other things maybe we could do. And I'll listen to this course, see if there's anything that maybe we could take at Unfold to help the business. And so I took the course and I devoured it. I was done with it within a day or so. And went to several different people in the company, including Eddie and David, went to coworkers, went to, just a bunch of people, managerial people right above me, and was like, hey, this is a pretty cool idea. I think it's something we could do. But it was sort of like, there's a lot of red tape. This is like, a more traditional agency. We're charging, $35,000 to $40,000 a month for services. And what you're talking about is like a $5,000 a month service. We're kind of like undercutting what we offer if we do that. And it would pretty much require kind of a dedicated team, which we weren't really set up to have a cross department team. It would require a web designer, a product designer, an illustrator, a brand designer. And we were kind of siloed into departments of, brand, web, product, and illustration. So it didn't really fit super well. And so it was kind of like I sort of had it in the back pocket of like, man, I really want to try this. Brett's doing it by himself. I think it would be really powerful as a team where people could have different specialties. But it wasn't really a good fit at Unfold just due to the company structure. So that was kind of how it started.
Kudos to you for bringing it internally versus like, this guy's building a one-man shop delivery service business. I get to leave and start my own version of this. Like you must have liked working there to bring the idea and concept and try to collaborate with the company.
I did. Yeah. I wanted to keep working with some of these people, like I was like, I didn't really have a desire to go off on my own and do it. So I really wanted I didn't want to just duplicate what Brett was doing. I was like, I want to bring in a new angle of like, yeah, we're a team. We're not like a one-man show. So
yeah. Okay. This created a new company, a joint venture. How quickly did that get started? Now we're at Jam.
Yep. So in maybe I'll start, Phil, and then you fill it in.
Yeah, go ahead.
So around May 2023 is when we officially in June or July, I think it was June, like where we created the actual business entity, or at least established it, right? I think the legal side of it, I think, came a little later. But yeah, that kind of spun off into, hey, let's put all our focus onto Jam because it's such a like trendy thing right now and everybody's doing it, or a lot of people started doing it, but nobody was really doing it as a team. And we were pretty equipped, and we knew we had the know-how to like, how do we, kind of put all this together? And that's why we thought we had that was our upper hand. So Phil, if you want to maybe add to that a bit there.
Yeah. Yeah. All this restructuring stuff happened. I went to David and Eddie and I was like, well, had this idea. Do you guys want to try this? And they were like, yeah, let's give it a go. We don't really have as much of the red tape now. Let's try it. Let's just see if it works. I mean, if worst case scenario, like nobody signs up and doesn't work. So, um, so we got it going. I think we signed our first client May 31st, maybe May 30th, something like that. And we officially kind of launched it June 1st. And I got on, I probably had 11 sales calls in the first like 2 weeks, and 9 of them like went and signed up right after the sales call. And I was like, okay, I was feeling pretty good about it. I'm like, all right, so there's something here because people are immediately going and signing up. And so I was actually sitting down with my friend who and I'll plug him because he's great. MDS, he's known online as MDS. His name's Matt Smith. He's a friend of mine. He lives down the street from me. And he was actually the one that originally referred me to apply at Unfold those few years before. And so I sat down with him after starting Jam. We've been doing it like 3 weeks. I said, Matt, man, I just I had like 11 sales calls and 9 of them signed up. I was like, this is like, it's crazy. Like the demand is really crazy. He goes, no, you have a problem. Your price is too low because you got conversion rate that high. What you're offering is like too good of a deal. Like the price is too low. You need to raise your price. And so we raised it from that like $49.95, a month to $59.95 a month, like within like literally in July. So we started it like June 1st. We raised the price July 1st, $1,000 a month. And then the conversion rate kind of became more normal, like in that, 20% or so, which was still really good. It was like, if I get somebody on a call, there was about a 20%, 25% chance that they signed up. So, which I felt like was still really good, but it wasn't like 90%.
Well, describe for everyone what exactly that offer was.
Yeah, it was basically the ability to have access to the same level of talent you'd get at a traditional agency. So a lot of the people who plugged into Jam, these were former Unfold people. So these were people we had relationships with on the design front. We knew their skill sets, and everyone's like a senior designer. They all work really quickly, really efficiently, and at a really high quality. And so the pitch with Jam was, hey, you can get access to the same, talent that you get at any traditional agency. And a lot of these clients were familiar with Unfold. So it was like, how is this different? I'm like, what's the same? It's like the same people and the same level of talent, but it works on a super structured system. So you have one task that you're allowed to have at a time. We deliver updates on a very strict cadence. You get an update every 2 business days, and you need to give feedback quickly. I mean, I was really transparent on sales calls about, hey, if you sign up for this service and you're like not into giving feedback quickly, like you're not going to get the value out of it that you should. So when we deliver an update to you, like get back with us like within the day so that we can keep moving on the task. So that was just a really structured. And again, this is like completely borrowed from Design Joy. Like I took his course. I literally like duplicated the Trello board he had. I changed up some images and some stuff,
Yeah.
changed some names around like of what we called stuff. But I use his template as like a boilerplate. I'm like, he's doing it. It's working. I'm not going to change anything until something doesn't work. It doesn't or breaks for our team. So yeah, it was very clearly like we operate on this cadence. And if this cadence doesn't work for you, don't sign up because this is how we work. And if you need a designer who's at your beck and call all the time, who you need a dedicated Slack channel, you want to be able to talk to somebody any time of day, like we're not the service for you. Turns out a lot of people actually loved the async thing. They didn't want to have client calls all the time. They would rather get a Loom video with an update on design and be able to review it on their own time. And so it worked really well. When we were saying, we'll offer you can have product design, web design, brand design, illustration. We even started bringing in animation later. And we said, you get access to all that different talent and skill set with like one subscription. So we had one guy that came to us and he was like, I have like 30 freelancers that I have to go to, depending on what the task is. And he's like, this, Jam seems really appealing because I can literally just hire Jam and I don't have to worry about finding all those contractors and depending on them. You guys manage, all the designers and the timelines, and I don't have to worry about that. And so typically most people ended up working mostly with one designer with one thing. They came to Jam, they wanted a brand design. They came to Jam, they wanted to work on a product. And so for the most part, they would only work with that one designer. We called that person the design manager. So design manager had the client communication, in Trello, and shot all the Loom videos for all the updates, managed keeping Figma very clean, the design software we're using. And yeah, so if another designer had to plug in, the client didn't have to meet the other designer. We talked about this on sales calls with them. Like, you don't have to meet, if we plug in 4 different designers over the course of your project, you have a brand designer and an illustrator and a web designer, and you're working with a product guy, you don't have to meet the other people that you work with. We're going to manage all that for you. So they like that it was one point of communication, access to all the talent.
Were you doing sales before?
No, I was sort of sales training ish before, but
yeah. So you show up, creative side, you present a business model alternative, and then you do a spin out off of that and say, we're going to do a joint venture together. And then Phil, you start sales. David, how lucky are you guys?
I know. I mean, Phil's a unicorn. He's good at a lot of things. So we got we got a talented bunch. So
yeah, it's a great advantage to be able to have that type of entrepreneurial drive, initiative, the agency to go make something and then want to create a version of it. You are downsizing the company and retooling it for purpose. And you're like, okay, well, with these component parts, what can we still deliver value with? And Phil comes in and goes, I have an idea. I want to be your partner. We can do this. You can support me with some capacity. I'm assuming you shared a little bit of the database and said, all right, these are the clients. Let's see who we can continue to service in this capacity. And then the three of you become equal partners in Jam. Is that how you designed it?
Yeah, it was kind of for the most part. It shook out that way. Yeah, it shook out that way. Essentially, it was made up of our two, like it's a joint venture, right? So my freelance company, which was just me, and then Eddie and David, which were Unfold. So it was essentially, like an equal partnership.
That's great. And then you start building some momentum. In our prep call, we talked about having a selling this in the future mentality. Like you're building a subscription model, reoccurring revenue. It has a little bit more of that SaaS vibe, even though it's fully service. It's just more consistent and to some degree a little bit more predictable than the traditional agency model you were running. So let's talk about how you thought about prepping it to potentially sell it in the future.
Yeah, David, you want to touch that or you want me to?
Yeah, let me start. And then Phil, I know you had a big role in that too. He's not just a salesman, but he was good at setting it up with all the processes and like he spearheaded some of that. But one thing I did want to add to what he said earlier was I know he kind of copied it or we copied and pasted what Brett Design Joy did. But I think the big addition was, hey, we're no longer like solopreneuing or like Design Joy did. He was a one-man show. We had to kind of figure out, well, how do we mix in contractors with clients and how does that process work? So there was definitely a lot of tinkering there, something we built, right, kind of from the ground up in terms of like, how does that process look like? And like, if someone calls in sick or if we need a new design, manager on the project, what does that transition look like? So there was a lot of conversation around that. But in terms of when we started Jam, and pre-Jam, when we were just because we're friends, we're always talking, and we were always just talking about products and SaaS companies and how do we build something that we can sell. So this was definitely already kind of in our minds of like, okay, if we do something, let's try to make it as automated as possible, as easy as possible, and eventually work towards, hey, we need to get out from the weeds where the owners, which is us, are not involved because the less the owner is involved, the more valuable the company. And Phil was definitely Phil was driving a lot of this. So I'll let him kind of speak to the early thoughts on that.
Yeah, I my mentor gave me a book. I don't remember when. It was sometime in 2023 called The E-Myth. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners probably heard of this book or read this book. I didn't even finish the book. The idea that stood out to me within the first couple chapters stuck with me so hard that when we entered Jam, I thought about it. And so what the E-Myth was presenting was like, think about everything you do in business as a franchise. And so even if you don't plan to franchise and, create more of yourself, of this business, make it easy to sell. So it's easier to sell if you have everything documented. All your processes are in place. And so someone coming in to take over either a role or to buy the business, everything's like already there. Everything's written down. They don't have to like come to you with every single question. They can reference all the documentation that you have. The onboarding process is more straightforward. And so from the get-go, every time we like we found that like, hey, this is going to be our process for onboarding a client. This is going to be our process for onboarding a designer, a design manager, everything that they need to do. Here's the process for delivering an update to a client. We just wrote it all down. So everything was written down. Everything had screenshots and, it was like all designed pretty so that it was nice to read. And it had lots of visuals in it. And we just built all that stuff as we went instead of having to retroactively go back and build it all. So I was super thankful. I mean, anybody looking to like start anything that you intend to hopefully at some point sell, like do that. I only did it because this book told me that was the way to do it. And so from the get-go, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, okay, if we decide to sell this in 5 years, I want to have all this stuff done. I don't have to go back and spend weeks redocumenting, or documenting all these processes. And so, yeah, it was like a good launch pad. That one like idea, I think, set us up really well to sell a lot earlier than I think we anticipated.
So you've made some traction. You've gone into it with a built to sell mentality. You have great lessons learned from the other agency days. So the bunch of habits you're like, we're not repeating those habits. We're doing this new reoccurring revenue, productized version of services. And then you list the business on Acquire. Talk about that decision and timing, just so we have context.
Go ahead, David, on that.
Okay. Yeah. So like we mentioned, so the idea to sell was kind of an early thought. Like one day we might sell. It was in our minds. So it wasn't nothing like out of the blue. We just decided to sell or anything like that. I previously had already some contacts at Acquire, so I've been talking with them through years. So I've always been a fan of just. I've never purchased or personally, acquired a company. But I've always loved. I was fascinated in just browsing, and I maybe one day I would have found something. So because there's different businesses, different products you can buy. So to me it was like a fun little thing to just look at once in a while, get the newsletter, review it. And so I had an account already, and I presented to Phil and Eddie. I'm like, we could list it on Acquire, and after doing some research, that was one of the top places to list. There was a few, but Acquire was familiar to me, so I reached out to my contacts, and they grandfathered us into like a pretty good rate, that because we already had like a listing going from the past. And so yeah, we were really merely just testing the waters. We didn't really think much of it. We're kind of in this. We felt like we might be like in our middle of our journey, not really towards the end. So we're like, let's test the waters. Let's see what kind of engagement we'll get, what kind of response we'll get from different, maybe there's somebody that's ready to go. So we had a price in mind and kind of what we were looking for. And yeah, we had a few months of back and forth with some people that were interested. So
Acquire has a decent onboarding process. It helps you do a little bit of valuation calculation.
yes.
When you said you had a price in mind, where did you get the inputs for calculating that? And then what did you learn through the Acquire platform and the process to reinforce that?
Yeah. I'll let Phil speak to this, but I know we had Acquire offers like this premium consulting. I forgot what they called it. Like it was like some package where they actually walk you through the whole thing. And it was just it was an amazing process. They really helped us kind of see where we should be based on previous, because they're the experts, right? So they know where we should be. We're an agency. We're offering a service. We've been in business for 2 years. So they really guided us along. So that was really helpful. But maybe I'll let Phil, if you want to add to the whole thing, that'd be good.
Yeah, I don't remember how we got to the value. I think David, you'd already said it in Acquire by the time that I saw the listing. We already had the thing in there, and I'm thinking that Acquire probably helped us kind of guide through some of that. And I know it's based on like, what's your revenue, how much profit are you generating? I think we were shooting for, this is like with us slowly like removing ourselves from the business and having contractors really run everything the day to day. Our goal was to aim for about a 50% net profit margin. And so I think we were, we started, it was just the three of us. We were like a 93-4% profit margin. But as we like slowly plugged people in and slowly removed ourselves from the day to day and really built, trying to do more of like working on the business as opposed to being in the weeds of the design work, it chipped down in the 80s and then the 70s and the 60s. I think we were still in the mid 50s or so by the time we got to listing the business. And so I think we were just going off of like what industry multiples were there and like our net profit and our revenue, kind of like, and looking at those numbers as kind of our inputs.
Good. And your decision to list it was, we had talked about a little bit of like, you had two paths. You could continue to invest in growth, because you're going to have to, you could continue to scale up customer acquisition, marketing, you could grow the brand, or you could see if someone could do that faster, more efficiently, and buy the business from you. So you looked at it as we're going to go to market and learn what the appetite is for our business, and then kind of make a strategic decision based on what we get as feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. I mean, none of us had ever sold a business. So we're like, this is a total, like, we're just, like David said, we're just going to put it out there, like, see if any fish are interested, in biting. So we're going to throw our bait of our business. And if nothing bites, we'll keep running it. We had tried to do a few different marketing initiatives. We'd done some advertising on like platforms like Dribble. We'd tried some cold email campaigns. But at the end of the day, we're just like realizing we're just not marketing people. We're designers. So we design for the marketing people, right? Like they hire us to design their ads and design their visuals. But like, we didn't really know, like, how do we, other than just posting design work, which is how we kind of got business up to that point, right? It was word of mouth referral and posting our work online. Other than those things, how can we scale up? And we tried stuff on our own, and we're like, we just don't know how to do this. And so that was also, I think, part of the motivation to list is like, I think we could probably find somebody who's really good at that. And we've got an infrastructure that they could scale this thing. I mean, I think we maxed out probably around 24, 25 active subscriptions at one point. I think we hit up into the mid 20s a couple times over the course of the couple years. But it kind of seemed like our ceiling. Like, we're like, I don't know how to get to, we don't know how to get beyond that. We couldn't get enough customer like coming in to get beyond that. And so it was sort of okay, who would be a good fit to like scale Jam up? Because I think we've reached the ceiling of what we know how to, how big we can build it. And so that was, definitely another piece of why list it,
It's helpful to give a little bit of context because you did the agency model in Unfold. You grew headcount as you grew revenue. You had all this kind of, I'll label it bloat, but you had all this infrastructure that you constantly had to work towards, which is the normal agency game as you're scaling. And then you have this new model that is profitable, extremely profitable, and systematic, predictable, reoccurring, and allowed you to package that in a way that after a short period of time was attracted for someone else who could continue the growth trajectory and invest more and maybe attach it to something that they have. Anything else you learned from those discussions from prospective buyers in the early conversations when you were listed that helped you think about the business differently before, spoiler alert, Napkin shows up? Especially given that what your development to the date look like?
I mean, I think there were a ton of lessons learned. I couldn't tell you like individual things right now other than going through business, like auditing our own business. People coming in, prospective buyers want us to go through like, hey, audit your own business, go through this document. I want you to like, map out all this stuff. These are like outside our normal workflow process documentation. This was sort of like at a higher level, spanning across lots of different parts of the business. So it made us think about a lot of stuff in doing that, even down to like our own personal goals in that process. And so I think that was, there's a lot of stuff kind of learned there that probably like almost lives in subconscious now for like next time I start a business, I'm going to like be thinking about these things. But that was definitely one part of it. Just, auditing our own business for someone else to like get to know it better was an interesting exercise. And there's tons of like stuff that I learned on the legal side of all this, like going through this, like what is involved actually. Buying and selling a business is not like buying and selling a car, really, right? Like there's a ton more components that go into this, and humans, right? Ours was actually relatively simple compared to like a business that's got hard assets and real estate, and like we didn't have any of that, right? We just got software and IP, right, and process. But I think, learning like what all goes into selling a business and what buyers are going to be looking at. There's a ton learned there, just for next time, things I would think about and consider.
Yeah, and one thing I want to add,
David,
just real
anything
quick,
to add on that?
yeah, one thing I would add is that kind of, I wouldn't say it caught me off guard. I was surprised about it, but it was kind of like I didn't really think about it. And it's the way deals are formed. So usually it's not like, hey, here's 100% cash, see you later, give me your business. It's like an exchange. Although those do happen, but they're rare. And this is something that even Acquire, told us this is very common, where you might get 50% cash up front, you might get 70%, you might get 30%. And then the other percent could be a mix of different things, whether it's stock options, whether it's something else. So that was kind of an interesting. Oh, okay, well that makes sense, So now every time I see like, oh, someone got acquired, I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, all right, part of that was probably cash, and then a part of it was stock, So it was just an interesting little thing. So
Yeah. Uh, Acquire's got a platform. You're getting these submissions, these NDAs. You're having these conversations. You're learning a lot because they ask questions, and so like every conversation is slowly compounding to make you able to communicate what Jam is and the opportunity to different buyers. But you hadn't found the right fit yet, and you were making more money in that version of the agency, profit easier, more streamlined. You all are like, well, it's not that bad, right? We're still making decent profit.
Right.
We could keep this thing. Let's
Right.
take it off. So you're getting to the end of like the discovery phase of selling a business. Which one of you was the one who was saying, okay, maybe it's time for us to pull this thing?
I think it was
Oh,
actually we had weekly meetings with our representative at Acquire, Kai, who's amazing to deal with. I mean, educated us through the whole process. And we've been meeting weekly, kind of updating him on things, and he's monitoring the platform, who we're talking to, all that. And so we were kind of we'd been listed for, I don't even know, 6-8 weeks or something. I can't remember how long we'd been on there. And it was kind of like in the conversation, he's like, all right, we should probably talk about what it might look like to, take this listing down, and you guys just kind of keep running with the business. Then we try again, in 6 months, 8 months, something like that. And so I think we already kind of were feeling that like we should probably just take it down. We'd had a good chunk of calls and chatted with a lot of different types of businesses, other agencies who were interested in tacking this on as like another service they could have, or an agency that's like completely out of design, but more in marketing or more in video. And they would like plug Jam in as like the still graphic side of a subscription for them. We even some of the people we chatted with actually became Jam customers after this process. They signed up for Jam and used Jam for months, right? And so that was a cool thing as well. But yeah, I think Kai kind of brought it up, and we were not surprised. It was just like, hey, we've been up for a couple months. Like, it's probably, we give it a couple more weeks and then we'll probably take it down. We're like, yeah, that's reasonable.
And then just to give the context, you thought about that because you hadn't had an offer yet that went back to that number. You said as kind of like, that's the number. We think that's fair based on our expectations. That's what we're shooting for. And so you hadn't had anyone really get there yet. But you probably had a few offers that at least sounded interesting during that time, right? Any
Yeah,
that made it close?
there's definitely ones we like chatted about and we're like, this is interesting. I mean, again, like David said, like we're kind of learning along the way, like what's normal for an offer. It's not like just buy my business in cash and like I just make out with a bunch of cash and there's no like tie ongoing. That's not really normal. There's normally a cash component, an equity component, some kind of earnout component to keep you engaged with the business. And so these were all things we're learning along the way. I had so the same guy that gave me the E-Myth, my mentor, going through this, he's actually a business broker. He works for First Choice Business Brokers. They're like a national, they have different franchises across the US. His is in Atlanta. But he's here in Athens with me. And I remember asking him when I meet with him every Tuesday night with a whole group of guys. And I was telling him about this whole process and just different deals we were getting. And I was like, I just don't know. I mean, these different kind of offers and the way they're mixed together, I'm just not really sure. And he said, look, here's a good rule of thumb for you to just keep in mind. He was like, you either get your price and their terms, or you get your terms and it's their price. And it just stuck with me like throughout the rest of the process. And I was like, okay, if someone's going to give us like, they're not going to give us our price, then it's got to be terms that we like really like. If they're going to give us our price, we have to be able to agree with whatever terms they come to the table with. And so that was, yeah, ultimately what kind of guided at least my thought processes throughout that time.
Yeah. You guys are getting such a good lesson on how to value businesses, what buyers look for, what things make good, durable businesses. That's hopefully tied. And the law of price and terms, your price, my terms, your terms, my price. So it gets to this, I don't call it end moment because it wasn't the end, but you get to this kind of like later stage of the process and you get someone who submits the NDA who is probably one of the best fits so far. Let's introduce Napkin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, David, do you want to speak to that first?
I mean, I'll start it, but I'll say I wasn't on that first call. I wasn't able to make it.
Oh, that's right.
And then afterwards, Eddie and Phil were like, they were just so excited in the chat. We have a chat group, and they're like, "Man, these guys are great. They're great people, and it seems like there's a lot of chemistry going on, right?" And I was kind of like, skeptical because we've already talked with so many people, and it's like, there was definitely a little bit of doubt. But then when I did meet them the second call, I definitely agreed, and they were just it seemed like a really good fit. But yeah, maybe Phil, you can go into how that first call went. And
yeah, the first call is kind of like they've got their guy who looks for businesses, right? So he's on the call, and then he's bringing in like one of the founders who at the time was in Dubai, Canadian guy in Dubai. I think Matthew's Canadian. I hope I don't get that wrong. But he's Napkin's based in Canada, so he's probably Canadian.
yeah,
So he's on the call, and we're chatting about the business and what we do. And he goes, "Look, we've bought a design subscription business before. He goes, the price point they had was significantly lower. They were like in the $100 to $1,000 a month price range. He goes, we scaled them to like 800 plus subscriptions a month. He's like, I think we can do that with you guys, and so I'm not really worried about like being able to scale you guys up and sell the business. All the numbers work for me. We've got the experience with businesses like this, and so I'm on board. Y'all just figure out the numbers and see if it makes sense." And so that was like in the first meeting, and I was like, oh gosh, they've done this before, like the same type of business, different scale of price, but it's the same core idea for the business. And so yeah, second meeting, other founder was there, CFO, meeting other team members, the team member who would kind of be the one that we would be working with directly as we kind of hand this thing off. We liked all of them. I ended up having some I call it like a personal connection. We were kind of both associated with these specific organizations back in 2011, 2012, and we had never crossed paths, never heard each other's names. But just that alone and those organizations, like there was like a lot of trust already because of the atmosphere around those organizations. We were like, all right, this is pretty awesome. So that was just kind of a personal connect that I had with them, and which it just added to the excitement. I think these guys are a really great fit.
So you hop off that call and go, dang, we found the perfect strategic fit who's bought a company who looks like us before, because I don't think you had anyone who really had a transaction similar to you guys. So you were always
Correct.
explaining the business to everybody.
Right.
They're like, we get it. We can scale up the subscription model. We've done it before. So we're not put off by your ambitions for where you think you can be in the future. We believe in you guys. We believe we can make that happen. If I recall, you had gotten to a certain level, but you were confident you could do more. So you knew that there was greater potential value than maybe that you had today. When did you start really was the next call you jumped into, okay, the price and the terms, or was it a longer get to know each other process?
From what I remember, it was pretty fast. They had an LOI over within the week, and the LOI detailed out all the initial terms that they were, kind of planning for. And we looked at it and we're like, I mean, they're giving us our price at their terms. And I don't think these terms are like disagreeable. This looks pretty reasonable to me.
Yeah.
And I think all of us felt that same way. And so I think we may have had one attorney look at it and, give us like a go ahead. We went to Kai with it, and we're like, hey, here's the LOI. Like, this is when we started having to figure out, all right, we need to like engage an attorney and figure that out. We need a transaction attorney. It got real.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, how much is a transaction attorney going to cost? Like you start figuring out, all right, well, these numbers start adding up here. But that was like a whole nother arena, right? So getting into that, and then we redlined back and forth on the LOI, or not the LOI. Once we got the purchase agreement, we started due diligence after the LOI. We had I think it was about was it 30 days, Dave? We were somewhere between 30 and 60 days.
Yeah, I think it was 30
of due diligence.
Yeah. So before you get there, so you get an LOI, you go, it got real. Let's get someone to help tell us the things we need to spot check in this LOI. You engage an attorney.
Yep.
That attorney goes through the LOI. Was there any big changes that your attorney applied, or was it pretty straightforward?
It was pretty straightforward. Yeah, there wasn't.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know if we changed anything in the LOI.
We had a few small changes. Like there were just some. There were a couple worries we had. I think they might have had a few. I don't remember, but I mean, it was their original, LOI. So they were pretty happy with. They knew obviously our asking price, and so there was like small things, but for the most part, I think they wanted to move a little fast, or maybe they didn't want to, but that was just they're naturally, they were just moving quicker than most, and yeah, I think it was just a quick. Yeah, everything happened quick.
I forget. In Acquire, did you have your target purchase price showing or not?
I think so.
You had it on the listing, right?
I think we did.
Yeah. So the important context for anyone who's not used Acquire.com, which is, a lot of times the headline price, some baseline financials, that's listed there. So people are showing up knowing that. Yeah. And what your experience is, they're pressure testing your response to them not liking it or figuring out how to make it work.
Yeah, and
So they
it would
said,
also like sorry, really quick. The listings also show like your multiples. So it would show you like, let's say you're interested in a business on Acquire, it will show you, okay, well, this is what they're asking, but here's also what their, you know, annual profit is, or revenue and profit, and then your multiples, it would kind of calculate it for you. So it's really it's a good setup.
yeah, yeah, and then it enabled them to show up and say, okay, well, if we're going to pay a multiple on your business, we're going to structure it this way. And you had enough exposure up to that point to learn kind of about the nuance of alternative forms of consideration. So performance payouts, equity. Uh, Give us some idea. You don't tell us percentage, but give us the composition. Were they enticing you to stick around for a long term, short term? Were they giving you incentives that would roll into a greater platform? Give us the things that made you really excited to say yes to that LOI.
Yeah, we met with them in person down in Sarasota. So October 1st, we went down there, met with them. This is kind of like maybe a couple weeks into due diligence, and we were pretty clear that like we don't want to like stay like intimately connected to the business. We don't want to like basically be kind of playing owner without getting paid as an owner. So we're like, but we are totally fine to be contractors like everybody else and basically step off of the seat of owner and ops of everyday stuff. And we'll plug in as a design contractor like all of our other design contractors. We'll work in the system we built. And so that's what we agreed to do. They were like, that's great. That's fine. They're like, as long as you guys could just kind of be around for questions for at least a few months. And we're like, yeah, I mean, these are like all of our friends that, work in this with us, and we'll be there. We're going to be working. We're going to be in Slack. We're going to be doing design work, plug us in. But there was no part of the deal was that we would be like intimately like involved or have like there's no ongoing salary or anything like that. Like they wanted us to be able to disconnect as fast as we could from any of the responsibilities of owning or running the business and only plug in as a contractor if we wanted to. So we were like, that's what we want. So we had other things we wanted to kind of try as individuals and together. And so we didn't want to be super tied into like having to basically still kind of run a lot of the business. We did have a portion of our purchase price baked as an earnout. So, and that the business would do a certain amount of revenue in the first 12 months after the purchase, after the closing. And so I think it was about like 18% or so the purchase price was based on it was an earnout. So we thought that was also reasonable. And, but it was basically their terms, but it was cash, equity, and earnout. So those were kind of the three like portions of the deal.
And you're outside the earnout period now. So give some context for the people, some future look. Was it easy to hit the earnout? Was it like a fair expectation now that you get to look back on the way they structured it?
Well, the earnout, actually, the 12 months would be November 20th. So we're still like kind of we're like halfway in. Yeah, so we're still in it right now. Yeah.
Yep.
And how do you feel with the wearing of the earnout clothes?
I mean, I'm still good with it. Like the fact that it's baked in there is all good. I think we'd love to see Jam busier and like get up there, but we're still like, we're not dissatisfied with having the earnout baked in by any means.
Great.
Yeah.
So then you had this rollover equity side. What did you learn about rolling over in the form of equity consideration that you didn't know before selling Jam?
One of the things that was the most shocking to me as I went to my CPA and talked about all of this deal structure, he was like, look, if you get shares, because this is a private company right now, they're planning to go public in the next few years. There's a lot of different stuff in the plan as a big picture for Napkin. But the biggest hurdle that I had, and I was chatting with Eddie and David about this, but that my first like, oh crap moment was, hey, if you get these shares and they're valued, even if they're privately valued or third party valued at a certain dollar amount, you owe all the tax on those shares when you get them. And I was like, what? I was like, that is stupid. That means that I'm going to lose like not just, 30% of the cash, whatever it is, because I'm in Georgia, so I have state tax, there's federal tax. So there was all these tax implications that I was like, oh, this is not good. Like I'm going to lose half the money, like on day one, that just the cash part. And I have to pay for shares that I'm not going to get to use for years. And so we had to figure out, I think I engaged on my side. We had a lawyer, there's Unfold's lawyer, CPA got involved. I had two on my side, like, tax attorneys get in and they were like, hey, we need to change the way this is worded. We have to fix some of this stuff. So you're not like, because these don't have any, even though there's a dollar value, there is no like, you can't sell them. So you might as well be no dollar value, right? So we had to orchestrate the purchase agreement and word everything where we weren't going to get hit with like double tax on our initial, cash that we got. So that was a little bit of a roller coaster and a little scary. And you had to pay a little more for some more lawyers, but in the end, saved us a lot of money on close.
It's
But
basically
it's-
we're
it's-
deferring the tax basically till when
Yeah.
we sell the shares.
Yeah, it's really important is when you earn based on those share values, you would be taxed. Were you surprised the buyer didn't bake that into the deal initially?
which part?
So the way you structured this is what I find always curious about buy side interactions with sellers. If you didn't have counsel advise you, you would have missed it.
Yeah.
So that from a buy side perspective, they could have thought ahead and built in provisions and timings that were more digestible from a tax perspective for sellers.
Right.
But it took you pushing back and having counsel advise you to make those changes. Do you think they just didn't think about it?
Well, one, they're Canadian-based company. There's probably some different. I don't know what the tax treatments are in Canada. They also are buying. They're also a global, so they're Canadian-based, but they're a global company. And so the tax in every jurisdiction, everyone handles this stuff differently. And so I think there was. Well, I think one part of it was they probably have a boilerplate kind of purchase agreement, and it's just this is how they always start with every. I mean, I could be wrong, but there's probably like a boilerplate agreement. It's just like this is what everybody gets. We edit these few things, and we kind of redline from there. That would be probably my assumption, but I could be way off.
I mean,
But as we
would
chatted with
say
them about this, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say like the changes we added was more of like almost like to be safe than sorry, right? I think if we didn't do the changes, it would have been more like, okay, maybe we could have, got away with it if like for lack of a better term. Maybe it would have been fine. But we're like, because Phil's had his CPAs kind of like, give us some different answers. Our CPA was like kind of leaning more on it should be fine. But let's go ahead and add this in there. And the Napkin team was fine with, some of those additions. So
Yeah. Most of the time buyers are. And they should be, right? They don't want you to be taxed out of your cash consideration. They want you to retain as much value as you possibly can. And it's great that you had folks who helped you see that in the deal, make the right modifications, and then negotiate. So you learned a lot, guys. Any point of the deal that it almost didn't happen?
Once we were in the due diligence purchase agreement phase, I don't think there was ever a point where we're like, I don't think it's going to happen. I think the whole time we were all excited every time we met together with them. I mean, everybody was keeping things moving along and excited. So we were, really
we were transparent too. Like there's nothing that we provided that wasn't accurate, like there, so I think they saw that we've provided everything kind of checks off, and there wasn't really any like hesitations from either side. So
No, you guys were positioned, no gotchas. You had been in front of enough buyers up to this point. You had learned a lot about the process, especially given that none of you had sold a business before. This is not only meaningful financially, rewarding, professionally, it's also the first time you get an attempt.
Right.
And you guys are selling for technically, it's like a phoenix. You had the unfold, David. I think about you and Eddie. Like you started as like co-working buddies, and you accidentally take on more people and clients, and you grow organically, and like you go on this long journey, and you feel like the unfold journey is a little bit unfolding, and then you spin out something, and then you have this next opportunity, and in a short period of time, it's compressed time for you guys. With this, what most people get to experience. And now you're actively selling a business. You have a great quality buyer, great fit strategically. And, your guys are making some good money from this exit. That's gotta feel great.
Yeah, no, I mean, the journey was crazy. It was wild, right? So there, like you said, a lot of ups, a lot of downs, and, definitely like you said, this is our first time just really going through this kind of process, an exit like this, and we wouldn't have been able to do it without like some leadership from Acquire, some of our friends or professionals that we know that we brought in and consulted with. So yeah, I think mixing all that up, it was definitely a good feeling. It was a celebration to say the least. So,
and Peter, I tell people that like, so Eddie and David and I, we're men of faith. We like believe in God, and like I tell everyone this made no sense. The whole entire arc of the journey made zero sense. Okay. We started a business from nothing. We immediately were profitable within a week. right? We all were making salaries within 7 days of starting the business. Okay. We sold it 2 years later when I was like, I don't think we're going to be able to sell it, and we'll just see if it'll go, it was like, it doesn't make any sense in the traditional sense of like starting a business. Normally you're not profitable for a while and it's like a grind and it sucks, right? For a little while. And normally that's why entrepreneurs are the only people that make it or have grit, right? They just kind of can keep going when they keep getting rejected and hit walls and, you know, and this was like not the experience of starting this thing. And then it was not the experience of selling this thing. I was like, this doesn't make any sense from a traditional means. And so I like always chalk it up to the Lord. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense to me. I will take it. This is incredible. I'm very happy about it. It was an amazing experience. I learned a crap ton, but I'm like, I can't pretend like I've made this happen. This doesn't make any sense, So
Yeah. Purchase agreements getting circulated, guys. Signing the document. What did that feel like for you?
that was pretty incredible. Yeah. David shot a video with his fam. You can talk about that, David.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it wasn't planned, but my family, like the timing was just perfect. My kids were here, my wife, and we were just all by the front of the house, and we're like, might as well record it. So we're like, it's funny because the first time we recorded it, I guess there was some missing signature, so it didn't go through. So we had to retake it. But then we retook it, and it was like, we like pressed the button together. Or no, I had my youngest, which he's like 1 year old.
Yeah.
So I actually took his finger and tapped the agreement. That was the final, nail in the coffin or whatever. So that final button was like, okay, we're officially selling. Like I'm selling. The three of us needed the signatures. That was my signature. So it was a cool a family moment for us, and yeah, it's something we can look back at all the time. So
yeah, it's cool to do in front of your kids. Like it's like a different level of accomplishment. Dad provides energy. That's got to be cool. Phil, how'd you experience it?
So I work at home. I've got a little office I built off my house. It's like 120 square feet. Looks like a little tiny house. So I'm normally here all day. That day I was at a coffee shop at a local like mixed use facility called Wire Park. It's like I was sitting outside in like a, terrace area kind of thing at a little table
we didn't
drinking
know
coffee.
what day we were going to sign, right? We didn't know.
Yeah, we had no idea. Yeah. So I signed it by myself at this like, outdoor in this beautiful scenery. But yeah, it was just me by myself at a little table. Not as fun, but I came home and obviously told my wife and we celebrated.
Yeah. There's sometimes a separation between signing close and wiring of a payment. What did you have it in parallel? Did everything happen on the same moment? Like signed, closed, deal done, payment wired, or was there any period of delay between your signing of a document and checking the bank account?
I think it was
delay,
about
right?
3-hour delay on the
Not
wire.
much,
Yeah.
yeah.
We signed it
Not long.
at probably 3:30 in the afternoon. They initiated
Like
the wire
how Phil
within.
calls it a 3-hour delay.
Yeah. Well, because
Basically,
I remember
Phil's counting
thinking
every
when we
second.
signed it, I'm like, yeah, we signed it. I'm like, how soon is this like close? Like, how soon does how does this work? And I think all three of us got calls within an hour. It was like, hey, we're just confirming your bank account information. And I'm thinking, well, it's almost 5:00. Like, we're probably not getting this today. And then I was like, does this stuff run after 5? She's like, yeah, up until like 6:30 or 7. And so I think all three of us saw it hit at like 6:15 or 6:30. And
it ain't real
so,
until
yeah,
it's
it
in the
was
bank, right? So it hits
pretty
the
fast.
bank.
That's right.
Yeah, that's another celebration moment, right?
Yep.
Yes. Yep.
And so you've officially sold your business. If you could go back in time and say to maybe this 6 months earlier or even before Unfold, what would you share to your younger self about the journey? Like what kind of mentorship lens would you have for yourself? David, you start.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I think first and foremost, I think in contrast to Unfold, when we started Unfold, we had no idea what we were doing. Me and Eddie, we're because me and him are friends. We're actually brother. He's my brother-in-law, so we are related, and we started Unfold. We don't really have business background. We don't really have a lot of this, but we learn quick, right? And we've read books, but at heart we're designers, right? And that's what we did best. And so we weren't even thinking of like, oh yeah, let's build this agency or this thing, like how do we optimize it? How do we, make sure I mean, we knew we needed like a nest egg, right? And that's as much as we knew. And we love to reward our employees, our workers. It was like, hey, we win, we all win together, right? So it was like like we didn't really think about like, okay, maybe one day we can sell this business, or maybe a portion of it, or bring on investors or whatever. So I think first and foremost, I wouldn't say to do it like literally when you have an idea and you're like, okay, let me quickly go run and start like create something to sell. I think first you want to test the product on a small scale, something that you think might work, something, whether it's through like you're under your LLC or whatever, try it out. And then if you see traction and you see things going, I think as soon as you can, start setting up a separate entity, like a separate like get the right documentation, the business plan, operating agreement. Like obviously that's all needed, but the sooner you do that and you pull out into like a separate organization, that's when now you can start automating things, separate bank accounts, separate everything, especially if you're sitting on a gold mine, and I think when we started Jam, we kind of knew there was a little bit of this gold mine in there, but we just weren't sure what would come of it. But we took that leap of faith. And I think that's what, to top that off with like just hard work, patience, and just putting out your best work and with a great attitude. I think that's the most important part. And whether you succeed or don't, keep your head up and just keep, like Phil said, that grit. Like some people have it and you just keep going, try the next thing. So
Yeah, when you think it's over, it's not over.
it's just a stepping stone to the next thing.
Yeah. Dave, what I hear you saying is you'd go back and say, it's going to work out, man. Keep your head up, and your sister's going to be very happy with you many years later.
There.
Phil, what about you? You've had this ascent. You went from, I mean, you're a designer, man. You're creative. What would you say to yourself that you wouldn't ignore?
Yeah, that's the hard part. No, I would probably tell myself, if you start something, document everything from the get-go. Like start writing everything down that you're doing, and all the stuff that's working, like solidify that. Like create basically what kind of we did at the beginning of Jam. I would tell myself that way earlier, of like start mapping out all the stuff that you're doing, document that stuff down. Number one, for you, not forget how you're doing everything, and so you can have a consistent product and deliver a consistent service. But also you're gonna need that later if you hire somebody, if you sell it, whatever. And yeah, I think the other thing is like I'd never intend. I don't think I ever had a life goal to build and sell a business. Like that was not on my bucket list at all. And so I think it's like expect the unexpected. I mean, things are gonna like happen that you don't expect that are gonna be great, and things are gonna happen you don't expect that are gonna suck. You just, like David, you just keep going, and there's gonna be some really great stuff that comes out that you would have never thought was possible, but you have to stick to it.
Awesome. Phil, Dave, couldn't be happier for you guys. Wonderful journey, transformational transaction. So fun. Thank you for spending time. If someone wants to reach out that your story resonates with them, what's the best way for them to do so?
So you can email me, or I guess our company, hello@unfold.co, or david@unfold.co. I'm on Twitter as well as Dave Kova. And then Phil, if you want to give your info.
Yeah, I'm FHL Creative everywhere. So like Faith, it's short for Faith, Hope, Love. So FHL Creative is my FHLcreative.com is my website, at FHL Creative on X. And yeah, I'm Phil at FHL Creative. So yeah, I'm down to chat anytime, jump on calls, get in my DMs. Always love meeting people. So
Awesome. Appreciate you guys. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay,
Thanks,
Peter. Thank you for your time. Take care.
If you like this episode, probably like one of our other episodes. Click here.